Gary Breen, welcome. Hello.
Hello, mate. How are you?
Very well. I was just
Good.
looking. You probably haven't seen this yet because I know you're traveling today. You're busy. The new Ireland jersey has just landed.
Oh, no way. No, I haven't seen it.
There you go. It's green. I don't know what else to say about it. It has no collar. If you told me this was the jersey they'd been wearing for the last 3, 4 years, I would not notice the difference.
Yeah. Well, you will notice the difference now because if we could effectively wear that at a World Cup, that will be an iconic jersey.
Well, that's true. Not sure about the white one. You can have a look later on. It's white with some kind of square green patches and sort of black patches.
But there have been some different, like kind of in different ones over the years. Even what I mean, we've had some shocking away ones as such. Remember that orange one at Macedonia? But
Yeah.
even as a youngster, I'm sure everyone's adult. So you are kind of excited about the new kit coming out to see how it looks.
As a player, did you give a damn?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. Certainly with the Ireland jersey because it meant so much to you. For me, you think about the iconic ones. I mean, I've got a picture of me as a young boy wearing that O'Neill's one,
Yeah.
and I actually have that as an adult version now because that's my kind of throwback one that I would put on when there's a big games. And I haven't had like kind of an opportunity to put it on that much recently, but I certainly will have in March.
Yeah. I was just looking as well. The early feedback was €105, no thank you from lots of people. They are getting
Oh wow,
they're getting steep, aren't they? And by the way, that's the kind of oh, I don't know, like just the every person one. If you want to get the
yeah.
if you want to get the ones that the players are wearing, which I presume absorbs your sweat or something, it's 100,
Oh, I don't know what I.
€145 for that one.
Yeah, and I don't know about those player fits on the average Joe. You know what I mean? I think it can be quite tight and unforgiving. I always remember John Hartson in that Wales Kappa kit. Looked great on the Italians, didn't it? The Kappa, not so much on the Welsh lads.
Yeah. Well, it's all out and ready for sale. We are 63 days away till Czechia, so it's going to creep up. Let's talk about Troy Parrott a moment because we just mentioned him before you were with us. He has now scored 20 goals in 26 appearances. Really, and this is
Yeah,
with the side, by the way, who are seventh in the Dutch top flight, who are 23 points off PSV, whose coach was sacked last week. So it's not like he's, performing in a team which is operating all
yeah,
systems go. And I guess his goal last night, similar to the two he scored against Ajax, he sort of has a nose and an anticipation of where to go, when to go,
yeah.
and it looks a nothing tap in, but there's more to it than that.
He's an incredible form of his life, really, isn't he? And the confidence that would have those 5 goals that would have given him for Ireland. But he's always, I mean, I said this to you before, Joe. Even when he's played for Ireland, and I think he's not particularly had a great opportunity, but when he got it, he took it. But I've always liked him. I said to you, I saw him as a young player, and I know that he was a young star, and it's always difficult in terms of like manoeuvring your way into the man's game and stuff like that, and those couple of loans. But he has found a home in the Eredivisie, and I think it's interesting now because in January, when you're in such a rich vein of form, all those clubs in the Premier League and around Europe will start looking at him, and it's such a big decision for him, bearing in mind that the World Cup on the horizon. He's obviously clearly happy there, bearing in mind how well he's playing. But I do think that he's above that level. He's proved it, and I think there'll be a lot of suitors coming for him.
And is he Premier League level in your eye?
Well, listen, in terms of the opportunity given that, if he gets regular games, I think he's stronger now than he ever has been. I think he's full of confidence, and then when you have that confidence, your game elevates. And I would hope, and I wouldn't be dismissive. I wouldn't think of any move to the Premier League where I thought, oh, no, that's beyond him. I think clubs that would be looking or crying out for a centre forward of his type, I think he could show his quality.
Because reading a few different pieces by journalists in the know who seem to have spoken to his camp or his agent or just have heard things
Yeah,
through the grapevine, what is quite encouraging, certainly from a Republic of Ireland point of view, whatever about Troy Parrott's bank manager's point of view, is he seems, or the camp at large seem, not like in a massive hurry to get to the Premier League. They're not necessarily going to jump unless there's, I'm not saying a guarantee of first team football, but like a strong
yeah.
likelihood of first team football. And they're not averse at all to taking a detour to Germany, another 2, 3 years there, maybe making their way into the Premier League that way, which is pretty admirable. Because again, I'm sure his bank manager would say, if you're getting a 4 year deal from Chelsea to go sit in the bench for 4 years, you take it. That attitude or that
Yeah.
conversation would happen because the money is life changing.
Well, of course it is in terms of kind of like setting yourself up for the rest of your life. But because he's found it so difficult on those loan moves at the early part of his career, he'll know that his pathway and the opportunity to have one at a particular team is so important because on the back of playing regular football, his confidence has soared, his abilities levels, because what it is when you're playing regularly, you take away that kind of like, you're calm about the game. You just think, well, listen, I'm going to play most weeks. I can show my quality. But when you're coming in and out every 3 or 4 games, you're so desperate to do well that invariably you over try, if that makes any type of sense. But I just think he's in such a good position. And I think that his advisor, I'd hope he's got really good ones that they do look beyond the money as such, because that should invariably come with his quality. And you just want him to kind of think, well, listen, you want to now secure, not just financially, but your kind of the rest of your career at a time when you're in such a hot, he's such a hot ticket right now, isn't
he? Yeah. I presume he obviously starts in Czechia. And it's
Do you
very,
reckon?
Well, it's very tempting. Obviously, you want Evan Ferguson to start too. Does that work away from home, that kind of occasion? Increasingly, Hamer obviously is kind of taking a defensive first slant. Is there still a very acceptable way to have both them on the pitch?
Oh, yeah, I think there is certainly in terms of that. I'd love to see 2 centre-forwards playing in a bang. But we were with John O'Shea in the week. He was over covering the Arsenal game. And he was saying that literally that the coaches and the manager are ultimately just fingers crossed in terms of with every weekend that passes to see who is available. And it's all in a good formulating plans in terms of like, what could potentially happen now. They'll do their research on the opposition, but it will literally be such a tight turnaround in that who is fit, because we've obviously lost Cullen to that bad injury. You're probably going to lose others, and then you've got to be ready to go then. So it's so difficult now to say in an ideal world, everyone's fit. Can they play together? I think they can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I genuinely do think they could.
Turning to Champions League, Manchester City have kind of just quietly, almost like a frog being boiled and not realising, it's just like they've become engulfed in a massive crisis over the last month or so. And that defeat to Bodo Glimt, it's like now it's like, is Guardiola going to stay to the end of the season? He looks empty, the team looks shot. It's incredible how it's unravelled spectacularly.
It's amazing, bearing in mind how strong they were in December. Like, they really looked like they were going through the gears. People were playing well. But the reality, Joe, is that team was still susceptible to certain direct football. I've said it to you before in terms of last year, Guardiola saying that the football that Iriola's playing at Bournemouth, where it's going from back to front, was going to ask questions of his centre-halves and his defenders. They're brilliant when they're dictating play, if it's slow build-up from the opposition or they're sitting in. But the Premier League has just gone and flipped completely to how we used to have it, where it's back to front early on. And we saw how they were exposed against United. But I think the lazy assumption is that it's because there was young lads in there. They weren't their first choice centre-back pairing, their first choice defenders. But that isn't accurate, because even in that game against Sunderland, even against Forest, when they did have those players in place, they just got turned so easy from deep balls, from fullback, just long balls. And it's something now that I think that Pep's looked at it now in the scenario. When he first came into the Premier League, do you remember he won 10 games on the spin? And I'd done the game at Tottenham where they were just a young, vibrant team under Pochettino. They blew them away athletically. And Pep straight away just made the conclusion in my mind that Zabaleta, Kolarov can't cope with that intensity. I think he's going to make that decision now on Vardiol, on Diaz, his captain even. And I don't think that Gurhi coming in is necessarily just to come in and fill in the injuries. I think they've identified that they need a centre-half who can defend high and who can defend a box, because these defenders at City just cannot do it.
It's funny, if they were conceding some of the goals they're conceding at the moment last season, we'd be sitting here and saying things like, well, they're just missing Rodri. That's all they're missing.
Yeah.
So it's more pronounced than that. Pep also looks just hollowed out, just tired.
He does look tired. And we think about him taking that sabbatical when, when he was after Bayern and Barcelona. And when you look back at it, he was only there 2-3 years at both clubs. He's been there so long at City now, and he does, because he's like I don't mean this disrespectfully, he's like the mad professor, and he turned to always trying to find the new way of playing football, and he does look tired. And I genuinely thought that when Semenyo came in and when Gay came in as well, it might re-energise him. And it just feels that you're so right to put it forward that it's a crisis after only a couple of games, really. They're in such a good position. As good as Arsenal have been, it's still only 7 points. Now, if they can get to April just being within 3 points of Arsenal when they play, and then you wouldn't know how Arsenal are going to cope with that type of pressure. But it just seems that they're dropping so many points recently. Now, it's a huge game for them. We're doing it on Premier at home to Wolves on Saturday. If they win that game, it's down to 4 points. Arsenal got a rejuvenated Man United. I know we've seen it before. I'm not getting too carried away with it. But I will say that the energy with which United played against City was incredible. It did look like United of old in terms of how quick the numbers they were getting forward, the amount of chances they were creating. But it doesn't seem that it's that bad a crisis. But I just think it's just the kind of the frustration with dropping so many points in the new year that City have done.
Yeah. Seeing as you mentioned United there in that game against Arsenal,
Yeah.
they're both interesting at the moment. But give us the word on what you saw from Carrick's United at the weekend. And by the way, City even in that game, like even the first 5 minutes, there must have been 2 or 3 balls that just rolled under feet over the sideline. Like City were just flat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it was like they read the script and said, "Okay, we'll roll over here."
Yeah.
But obviously, it wasn't just. It was more than just an energetic, backs to the wall, nick a goal on the counter attack type of derby win. And Manchester United have had a fair few with them. It was kind of more complete than anyone expected.
Oh, it was so comprehensive, Joe, in terms of it. I mean, I'm going to watch it again in preparation for the game on Sunday, and also for City in terms of how exposed they were. But from watching it live and just the emotion of it, it was just incredible. I mean, they had all the goals disallowed United. They were like hitting the post. They were just breaking at will. They just could not live with them. Now this is, we're led to believe that Bruno and Casemiro can't run, but they were running all over City at the weekend. So it just shows you just what an influence that Michael Carrick has had. And there's a calmness about him. He just oozes like kind of control in terms of what he's doing. He was a young player in the West Ham team when I was there, and nothing seemed to faze him then. And then you kind of like flip forward to his career at United, so successful, didn't seem to get overly phased there, and he didn't seem overphased with the whole kind of euphoria of that emphatic win. And he kind of said like afterwards, well, listen, we're not quite there yet, but it's a good start. And you just think, yeah, and it was so obvious and to the extremes of how they responded to him in a way that they just didn't with Amorim.
Yeah. And you do sort of look at Mainu back in the team. You do sort of look at Bruno in behind the striker, really like allowed to kind of let his quality do damage. You do look at like Shaw getting forward, and he just doesn't do. So many years he just doesn't do it enough. And Ahmad on the other side, Dallo obviously as well. There was.
But Joe,
I don't
with all that, go on. Sorry, with all that, I mean that's brilliant, but they've caught us on before this United team. You know what I mean? There's a new manager coming in. One thing I would say is that you've still gone back to Maguire. You're still relying on Shaw. These are the guys who continuously let United down. Dallo, he should have been sent off. That's clear in that game with a tackle on Doku. But the one difference that I certainly do feel with this United team, not necessarily just the manager, but obviously Steve Holland's going in as such an experienced coach, knows all about what it's been there, seen it, done it. But the big difference is that the likes of Mbeumo, Cunha, Ahmed are better than Anthony, Garnacho. They just are Rashford. They're just more reliable than them, and that bodes well for United.
But I also thought the point I was just going to make was,
sorry,
I agree totally with that point. It's an important point to make about the players, but almost a parallel with Ireland recently under Hamer Hallgrimsson, going back to kind of basics and feeling more comfortable with it. They just looked a bit more comfortable in that formation. It's just second to a footballer. That formation is just second nature.
Yeah, but do you know what? When you say the word basics, it's kind of like it has a kind of like a little bit of a flippant edge on it, where people go, it's so like average football. But the reason why these basics of football are proving so good at the moment is because you've got a generation of players who can't defend early balls. I've said that about Manchester City. It's why Arsenal are doing so well at set pieces and making it difficult with it, literally saying to people, break us down. It's why they're running, why they're 7 points clear at the top of the league. It's just, you're asking players now, the modern day player, after a generation of this kind of tick-a-tacker style playing out from the back, you're now asking them to defend. You're asking them to defend straight balls. You're asking them to defend up against robust centre forwards, balls into the box, long throws, crosses, and they can't do it. And it's something that you're right to say about United, relatively basic, Ireland, relatively basic, but so effective. Look back to Jack Charlton when he first adopted it at the international level. I know we were playing that kind of basic style with unbelievable quality that Ireland had under Jack, but it does catch other teams out.
Yeah, I guess the damning thing is it's a bit like when Rashford went to Aston Villa and started working hard, and people said, "See." But so when and the point even was made on commentary, like, look at Dallo getting out to close Doku, sprinting out to him, stopping crosses. Contrast that with how he was against Bournemouth. Like, So you're tempted to go, God, yeah, that is great. But actually, the thought you would have is, well, why is he not
Yeah,
doing it other weeks?
yeah.
It actually underlines the lack of professionalism they have so often, that team. So you still can't trust them as far as you throw them, that group.
No, and do you know what? I often say this. To get to United, you've got to be a really good footballer. But the big difference is to stay at United, it used to be you had to be a brilliant footballer. And I think too many of those players have been able to fail, have another chance under a new manager, fail, have another chance under a new manager. So I still look back then with massive judgment because there's too many players within that group are not consistently good enough to get Manchester United back to where they believe they should be. Hopefully, Carrick has adopted a system that would help them, which was ultimately a 4-4-2 out of possession.
Yeah.
But their pressing was incredible. It really was. It didn't give City a moment. Even Rodri, who, although he doesn't look like he's got any of his athleticism back, he's still so clean on the ball. But even he was making passes and giving it up. So just shows you. And the crowd, the energy, it was unbelievable. I'm just looking forward to seeing how that team prepares or copes against Arsenal at the Emirates.
Yeah. And a last one on it. Are you like one of these people who's I don't care if he wins every game until the end of the season. It just can't be Michael Carrick.
No, I'm not that. I know people have gone hard and fast with it and saying, but what if he did win every game? I still would look at Michael Carrick and see him far more as a manager than I ever did with Solskjaer. Solskjaer failed at Cardiff and then yet was brought back. When there was talk about him potentially coming back, I was thinking, oh my God, you're just repeating the same mistakes. Why couldn't he be the manager? It would ultimately be determined by how well they finish the season, how well they recruit, what his plans are in terms of taking United back to where they belong, not just having, because when the new manager comes in, there's always a little bit of a bounce and everyone's got a clean slate. And that's why you worry about these players, is that will they revert to type? I hear what you're saying. I think there's going to be some quality managers available. That's been well documented. But that's not to say that just because they succeeded elsewhere, they can succeed at United. The flip side of that, Joe, is that just because you play for United doesn't mean you understand it. It doesn't. I know that they say that, but clubs move on. I couldn't go back to my old clubs and say that I know them inside out because I haven't been there for so long. So, and everyone that says like, oh, he knows United and he knows Ferguson. It's Alex Ferguson who had the success. It's not essentially the Man United way. It's Alex Ferguson. He weren't successful before him.
Completely. Well, so it's going to be interesting for sure. Arsenal, San Siro, 3-1 win against Inter, who were top of Serie A.
Yeah.
That was on the foot of, God, they drew at Nottingham Forest. Like, what's going on with this title challenge kind of vibes? So they look to be still in really good place, or are performances like the Nottingham Forest one giving you pause for thought?
No, I think at times you're looking at it and thinking, well, I certainly look at them games and think the game against Forest was at risk at times, and the game against Liverpool was certainly at risk, yet they didn't lose. And I know people can say it's only really Villa with that late winner that have done that to Arsenal. So there's so many times in every game for Arsenal where the opposition feel like they're in it, like Bournemouth, Everton in recent weeks, and yet they don't get over the line. Arsenal just get it done. Even against Inter at the San Siro, there's a moment where you're thinking, oh, they could be under a bit of pressure. They just saw it out. And that was with 7 changes. And, that's effectively showing the strength of depth within that squad. The only thing I'm looking forward to really seeing on Saturday is that, does Jesus start? Will he lead the line, or will Gyökeres come back in? Jesus, it was so fascinating because I think about Jesus initially coming into Arsenal with Zinchenko. Pep brings them in for City. Arteta brings them in from Pep City as players who know about what's required to win. So he did elevate that squad. It's part of the kind of the culling of that Arsenal team that was serial underperformers. So they come in, but Arsenal have now kind of like benefited from those players, but they've gone beyond them. Zinchenko's gone out. There was a lot of talk that Jesus was, but it looks like Jesus has now identified, listen, there's still a role for me here. If I can score goals, and the 2 goals that he got against him were fox in a box type of goals. They weren't the type of ones, because he's a fabulous footballer. He's quite fluid, isn't he, running around that forward line. He rarely stays in that box. I think he's looked at the situation now and thought, I'm desperate to stay here. My contract's up. Can I identify where I can play? And I always remember Craig Bellamy when he was at City and they had all the money and the players coming in. He identified Robinho as the weakness. He'd been playing centrally, but said, I'm going to go after that left wing position. And he nailed it down. He got it. I wonder whether or not Jesus has looked at and think, this is my position. I can take that off as Gyökeres, who for all the money, he does not look at the level required. And as much as people talked about getting that killer number 9, he's not it. If Arsenal were playing in Champions League final tomorrow, only Zubimendi would play. Eze wouldn't play. And everyone's saying, listen, this is the creative spark that they've been missing. But he's only created 8 chances in these 18 games. Their stats are not good enough compared to what he was doing at Palace. So this is why Arteta probably always goes back to his tried and touches. He goes back to Odegaard. I think he'll go back to Havertz when he's fit. The worry, though, for him is that even though he's on the bench, he still didn't come on for 20 minutes. So he's obviously still managing his injuries. But it'll be fascinating, that game at the Emirates. It'll be a throwback. It's a big game, United, in terms of where they think they are and where Arsenal need to be in terms of getting those 3 points.
Yeah, it's going to be good. Liverpool won last night very kind of comprehensively, 3-0 win away to Marseille. I don't know, did you catch Slot's comments afterwards? Kind of,
I know.
Didn't really tell.
I know what you're going to say.
The low block thing?
Yeah, he goes on. We've done Liverpool a lot on Premier Sports recently, and they struggled. I mean, even at home, Joe, they've not beaten any of the Premier League promoted teams. All 3 have got points away from it. When's that ever happened at Anfield? And the reality is that the low block, the reason why they can't beat the low block is that they can't sustain their attacks. It's unbelievable. He's changed that midfield formation where Gravenberch now is kind of getting forward. Before, he just stayed behind the ball and he offered that wall. So as soon as you cleared the ball, invariably he'd pick it up, start the attack again. He'd ring fence it. It would be difficult to clear it. But when you're playing at a team that's at the bottom of the league, which I often did in the Premier League, all you want really is a reprieve. You just want an outball that you can just have a little bit of a breather, get your defensive line 10 yards further up the pitch, just regroup. And Liverpool in this formation, which is very Eredivisie, very Dutch, which I don't like in the Premier League, and I'm surprised that he's adopted it on the back of how good he was last year, is that midfield 3 are rotating all the time. And it does create numbers and it does create a little bit of space for Wirtz to excel in. But what it does is that so often Gravenberch is caught ahead of the ball. So invariably then you've got the likes of McAllister, who can't track people if he's deep. So the likes of Wolves, which we saw recently at Anfield, and Burnley can relieve the pressure and they can get up the pitch. And that's why he can't break the low block down, because ultimately in a low block, what you want to do is you want to keep your kind of like your pressure on. So mistakes appear, you fatigue as a defender, and the openings appear. I don't understand why he's going on about it all the time.
So when you say it's a more Eredivisie formation.
Yeah, in the Eredivisie, what you find is that every team plays the one style because of the fact that it's the Dutch way of football, and all those coaches are so kind of like they're so brainwashed by it because it's great for them in their league, but it's literally in the Eredivisie, it'll be a case of you win the ball back, you'll have a couple of nice passes, and then you go again. And it's rotation, it's fluid, it's total football. And this midfield 3 now, right at the moment, whoever it is, whether it's Jones, McAllister, Gravenberch or Szoboszlai, they're rotating all the time, so they're getting caught. You know, it's great in terms of attacking, should create more chances, but it isn't, because of the fact that because they're out of position, you can clear the ball easy, or your men from deep can run up the pitch and relieve the pressure. If you look at Liverpool, they were so good last year because Gravenberch stayed behind the ball, and I genuinely believe in Gravenberch and Szoboszlai, they've got 2 of the best number 6s. Just stay behind the ball, keep the pressure on the team.
Yeah, because obviously Gravenberch had that amazing goal where he took it early, a run in behind a couple of weeks ago, and last night he was making runs in behind, and so you look at it and think, oh God, he's
because Joe, he's a sensational footballer. As a kid, he was compared to Rijkaard. It's why he got that early move from Ajax to Bayern Munich. He's got the lot.
Yeah.
But I think he needs to stay behind the ball for this particular role.
Because McAllister but Szoboszlai should be able to sit there. If Gravenberch goes, Szoboszlai should be able to clean up.
But invariably, Joe, even for that Wolves goal that Gravenberch scores, when the cutback comes from Frimpong, a brilliant bit of skill, because Scott said the only way to beat a low block is a brilliant bit of individual skill or set piece. And I'm thinking, don't tell me after all the money you spent, that is the only way to beat a low block, because it isn't. But on that occasion, Frimpong does a bit of skill, gets to the byline, cuts it back to the penalty spot in around there where Gravenberch finishes. All 3 of their central midfielders could have held hands for that cutback. Okay. You clear that ball and Wolves are up the pitch, and they were. Okay, so when Gravenberch goes, you're not seeing one of the other 2. In particular, you'd prefer Szoboszlai with his legs. You're not seeing them sit enough when he goes. Yeah, and then that's the primary issue. And the secondary problem is the fact that when the ball does get cleared, Konate he's been all over the place. He can't make the ball go back. He can't make those 2 centre-halves feel like a wall where you kick it against and just come straight back at you. Invariably, Konate, as a defender, is supposed to slow down attacks. He quickens them up because he just dives in all the time. Yeah, okay. That's interesting.
So you, as you said, have played in plenty of low blocks against plenty of good teams.
Yeah.
Tell me the way teams score against a low block. What did you hate a team doing against your low block?
The fact that you just couldn't relieve the pressure, Joe.
So just stay on.
Yeah, because even I hate going back to it, but United on Saturday against City, they just were attacking. There was numbers coming forward. The crowd were up. You just couldn't get a breather, it didn't seem, for City. And that's the problem when you go to those teams and you play against the bigger teams, is that they continually asking questions. So there's no moment for you to clear the ball and get up the pitch where you can just go, okay, where's my centre-half partner? Full-back to your right. Let's get up the pitch. Let's try and get away from our penalty box. That's what used to be so hard in a low block against the teams like United, Fergie's iconic teams, or Mourinho's teams, or even Wenger's teams. The top teams just kept that pressure on you all the time. And I genuinely just don't think that Liverpool are able to do it. And that's why they find it so difficult to play against a low block.
Because last night, whatever about being open at the back and conceding, Slot was kind of playing the low block as, this is me paraphrasing, so it's not a direct quote, but what I took him to mean was kind of like, they've got lots of numbers back, physics, lots of bodies. There's a degree of you just kind of have to hope something falls for you. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's a bit of pot luck almost, and it's going against us. It's hard to be consistent against that. He was almost saying, like, you're kind of powerless to break it down. And to be fair, there's a nub of a point there. Like, there's many a manager, big team has been frustrated by a park in the bus, as it was called back in the day.
Yeah.
And has just said, they got the rub of the green. Their keeper had a great game. Like, you can get done by a low block. I know you can. But Slot was kind of playing it as like, what can you do?
That's so true how you said that. My spin on what he's saying is, if he's like, low block, why are teams playing low block? He sounded like Wenger. Why are teams throwing it in a box? Why are teams going long ball? It shouldn't be that. Tap-ins, no more throw-ins. Let's kick it in like Wenger was going on about all the time in terms of the physicality that his teams couldn't cope with. Slot to me sounds like that now when he's talking about low blocks. He goes, come on, guys, we want to be... It's as if he's saying, we want football to be exciting. No one should be allowed to play a low block. And I'm like, oh, my God, Slot, you got everything right last year in terms of your light touch on that squad you inherited. Even his kind of press conferences were cool, measured. I know, that's the case when you're winning games. But even now, I do think he's an excellent manager. I've got no doubt about that. I've seen some really good performances. Going to Marseille, I know the Premier League is stronger than the French league, but that's impressive.
Yeah.
Going to Inter Milan at a time when they were really struggling, getting that 1-0 win, I thought defensively they were so good. I thought they were exceptional away at the Emirates in that second half. Because in that first half, they were going man for man, where, at times, McAllister and the midfielders were in the back line. I'm thinking, you're banging trouble here against Arsenal. But they didn't. They worked it well. Arsenal panicked a little bit. By total control in that second half. So he's very astute as a manager. I really like him. And I know it's a stereotype, but I've always felt the Dutch managers struggle in the Premier League. And I only think it's Slot, Hidden, and maybe Martin Jol who got it. They understood the Premier League. And I especially felt that last year with Slot. I thought, wow, you really do get it in a way that, Van Gaal or De Boer, they didn't get it. They're trying to tell the Premier League how to play. But I'm looking at it now, and the frustrating thing for him must be is that there's these nonsense questions about Alonso, that he's ready to go. And Liverpool fans, if they want that kind of high intensity football, Alonso's not going to give them that the way Klopp did. He's not that type of manager.
Final one. I don't know. I'm sure you have at some stage been in a team where it must just feel like, oh my God, we had a good thing going here, and it's just
Joe, you couldn't talk
blowing
to a better
up.
man than that.
Huh?
Yeah, Coventry. You can talk to a better man than me for that, Coventry, because you're doing well. You finally found a team, and these players are doing so well that the bigger clubs want them. Initially, it was Dion Dublin got himself into the England squad. Darren Huckabee around '98, that kind of World Cup, likewise. And then it happens, you rebuild again. George Boateng leaves for a better team. And of course, the biggest example is Robbie Keane. And you're thinking, we've got a really good team here, but it's not sustainable. Mid-tier Premier League teams, it's not sustainable if you produce these players. And Palace, they're just a victim of their own success. And you can see the frustration with a manager. I can imagine what it is like for the supporters. And they've suddenly got a team that's just incredible in terms of winning the cup, potentially can win a European trophy this season. And it looks like their team's just been decimated, cherry-picked for all their best players.
Yeah, because Eze going's painful because he's just that kind of player. Then Mark Gay goes. then
Yeah.
Glasner's
And
like,
Elise as well. Do you know?
Elise,
Yeah, Elise before that.
Glasner's like, I'm out of here at the end of the season. He said the team has been abandoned by the club's recruitment strategy. And now Jean-Philippe Mateta has just told them, I'm out of here too. I have 18 months left on my contract. He feels promises have been broken. The ambition of the club doesn't match his. So
Oh well.
he's
Do you know
downing
what,
he's downing he's downing
Joe?
tools at the moment.
You made the perfect point in terms of Troy Parrott's, kind of advisors and Mateta's. That's whatever they've advised in there is so wrong, because at a time when they are weak, they're hurting Palace. For him to now come out and talk like that, and that just shows you that if that's happening in the change room, because his teammates must be looking at him thinking, this is a player, Mateta, who this is the best he's ever played at Palace. This isn't a guy who's destined, to reach the top. If he stays at Palace, Joe, he's in the French squad for the World Cup. And now he's risking it all now by potentially going to a so-called bigger club where he might not start all the games. He certainly will start at Palace. And he's putting that at risk now because he's sensed that there's an opportunity here to double my money and take advantage of the scenario that Palace are in. Maybe I'm doing him a disservice because by all accounts he's a good lad, but that doesn't sound like good advice to me.
Well, it seems Juventus were in for him, and that would sort of make you stop and think, I suppose. But yeah, it's actually just really sad. I had half thought that maybe Premier League money would insulate these clubs from being asset stripped away. It would have been done for the last 30, 40, 50 years. But
but ultimately that's determined by the fact, like you said, they're 18 months on his contract. Palace are so scared. I mean, they are counting their lucky stars that they actually got £20 million for Gurhey, who is a top defender, and they've managed to get something from him in January.
Yeah. So that's them sliding backwards anyway. Listen, thank you so much. That's great. Cheers, Gary.
Thanks, Joe. Speak to you soon, mate. Take care.